Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Happy holidays everyone and welcome to MST.TV. Today we are going to talk about the new Ghost Girl Evening Crescent in Autumn Shower. But rather than just talk about her, we're going to compare her with her predecessors. No, not the other Ghost Girls. We're going to compare her with Forbidden Chalice, Infinite Impermanence, and Effect Veiler. All these cards have very similar effects. They are all monster effect negators, and we are going to find out which monster negator is best. And if you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV like this one, well, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and ding the notification bell, and help check out the Patreon link down in the description below. It'd be a nice Christmas present for me. It helps support this channel. I appreciate you guys for doing it, and let's jump into this one. Okay, firstly, let's look into Evening Crescent Autumn Showers card text since we know all the other three already. It's a Wind level 3 zombie tuner with 0 attack, 1800 defense, much like all the other Ghost Sisters. If your opponent special summons a monster face up, you can discard this card, then target one of those monsters. And this turn, negate that target's effect. Also, if that target leaves the field this turn, the player who controlled that monster takes damage equal to that target's original attack. You can only use the effect of Evening Crescent and Autumn Shower once per turn. There's a lot of breakdown. To give you guys my initial impression about this card, I'm actually not too impressed. Especially when comparing it with the other effect negators. Looking at her first thing is she is a trigger effect, not a quick effect, a trigger effect compared to the Ghost Girls, so a little bit slower and triggers only on special summons, so normal summons won't work. So Armageddon Knight is gonna be fine, Draco Net's gonna be fine. Most of these normal summons that you guys really enjoy, they're gonna be a-okay. That's not okay with me, so I don't know if I want to use this card anymore. You can discard this card, so generic discarding, so it doesn't require to go to the graveyard, then target one of those monsters. Targeting is pretty normal for all of these cards, really. This turn, negate that target's effects. So if I book that monster, then it's gonna be fine. It doesn't say negate its effects, it negates its target's effects, so because this card does target, it's going to represent that with targeting. I would have changed the wording there to negate its effect so that even if someone flips a face down, it will still be negated. But that's just me. So it does allow you to play around this card even with just using a simple Book of Moon or a proper chaining to remove the monster itself. Now also, if that target leaves the field this turn, the player who controlled that monster takes damage equal to that target's attack. That's kind of an interesting thing that you can use in like when you're close to playing into time. Yeah, so your opponent burns and then, oh, it's time of the round. Oh, I'm sorry, you got rid of your monster. But that also means that you shouldn't hit a 0 attack monster because that would be kind of pointless. You're not going to burn them. They're going to get rid of it regardless. You might have negated it, but didn't do anything. And it's hard once per turn. Seriously, because you made this one hard once per turn, I feel like the negation part of it could have been permanent rather than expiring at the end of the turn. That's just my impression on this card, simply because all the other cards, they don't, like, they are like not limited to once per turn. You can use as many copies as you want. This one a bit more limited, but I'm guessing they're kind of going with the same feel as all the other Ghost Girl, where they're all hard once per turn. I don't know, I feel like you kind of shackled the power down on this one a bit too much. Anyways, let's go with some comparison. Looking into the timing and conditions of each of these cards, Forbidden Chalice is a quick play spell. In the hand, during the owner's turn, you can use it whenever you want. When it's set, you can use it during either player's turn as a negator. And also, this is the only one that is allowed during the damage step. So that is a pretty good one in terms of condition. There's no condition for this card. You just play it from your hand. It doesn't require any sort of activation. It is kind of like a quick play. It's a spell speed too. And as a set card, well, if you set it, because it's a quick play, you have to set and pass before you can even use the card again. And Infinite Impermanence, definitely the fan favorite right now, and that's why it's so pricey, because it's very versatile. In hand, you can use it during either player's turn. However, there are conditions to that. In your hand, you cannot activate it if you control other cards. As a trap, you can just set it and pass turn, it'll be live at any point, and you can even use it to stun out your opponent's spell and trap zone. Whatever that's in the same column, if they summon a monster, they try to use their spells and trap, they forgot about it. Yeah, it's a very punishing thing. Never let anyone take it back. They're like, oh, I meant to put it over here. Well, you meant to put it there, but you didn't, so I'm guessing it's negated. Oh, my hand slipped. Oh, sure, if it hand slipped, then you would have moved it before I revealed my card. There's a lot of arguments towards it, but I usually side on the side of the person that activated the Impermanence instead. It's just how it is. Like, you cause someone to reveal the trap because of your inability to communicate where you're putting your card down. Okay, so yeah, anyways. Infinite Impermanence, probably the fan favorite because it's usable during either player's turn, and very small limitations in terms of condition. Effect Veiler, you can only use it from your hand during your opponent's main phase only. That is a big limitation, so in other words, during your own turn, not very useful. You can use as level 1 tuner. That's a pretty good use if you run a bunch of level 6s and 7s, and maybe even 5s. Now, in your hand, it has to be sent to the graveyard. It's not discarded, so if you are locked out of the graveyard, you're forced to banish everything. Effect Veiler is one of those hand traps that you cannot use. That's a pretty big limitations. And as for our final one, Evening Crescent and Autumn Shower, in hand, you can use it during either player's turn, which is pretty good, but in terms of conditions, of course, hard once per turn, and it requires a special summon monster trigger to allow you to even use the card. So it doesn't work against normal monsters. That's a big sign of, like, I don't know how I feel about this card, but I have come to terms to believe that there are use cases for this, which makes it superior to Infinite Impermanence in some regards, and even Effect Veiler to some regard, but not Chalice. Chalice somehow has the ultimate timing for everything, so I'd rather play Chalice to some degree. But looking into the next part, practicality, usefulness, and purpose of these cards. We're going to look into the timing of these cards, specifically in the first 2 turns, because that's when they are the most useful and they have the most impact moving the game forward. So during the opponent's turn 1, during your turn 1, during your opponent's turn 2, and during your turn 2. Forbidden Chalice during the opponent's turn 1 is completely useless. Your opponent gets a free pass on this because you cannot activate quick play spells, well, during your opponent's turn if it's coming from your hand. However, if it's your turn 1, you can set this for disruption for your opponent's turn 2. So for your opponent's turn 2, if this was set in the previous turn, it is immune to the Call by the Grave. Unless your opponent has spell trap removal, they have to accept that this card will be part of the game state and will have impact towards the game state. If it's turn 2 and it's your turn, your opponent established a board, Forbidden Chalice functions as a decent board breaker. You can use it to trade off 1-for-1 cards. Unless your opponent has a bunch of cards that are unaffected by spells or cannot be targeted, then that does create a little limitations toward the card, but overall you have the best timing for it. You can turn off, say, Thunder Giant Colossus. Some Sky Striker players have swapped this card in to replace some of the Widow Anchors that they are missing, because this counts as a spell, and it does fill the 3 spell count for the other Sky Strikers to get the other effect from their cards. So overall, a pretty decent card. Has been coming back a little bit more. Next we have Infinite Impermanence, probably one of the best ones. During the turn 1, during opponent's turn, you can disrupt combos with it from your hand, which is good because you activate it from your hand, and with that activation, your opponent cannot use Call by the Grave, which is one of the best parts. If it's turn 1 during your turn, you can set it for disruption, which automatically gives it usefulness right away, similar to Forbidden Chalice to some degree. And during your opponent's turn 2, if you have this card set, you can disrupt them, same as Forbidden Chalice. You just activate it, turn something off, and blow out a column for spells and traps. Very useful, but if your opponent has spell trap removal, it does make it susceptible for removal before it gains maximum usefulness. Then there is turn 2, your turn. The only thing is you have to use this card early before you commit a monster or a spell and trap onto the field, just so that you can activate from your hand. Otherwise, you can still use it as the other set, or you just set it ahead of time and just pass it to your opponent's turn and disrupt them from there. So, understanding the tempo of this card, there's a lot of forgiveness for Infinite Impermanence, that's for sure. Then there's Effect Veiler. It's useful during your opponent's turn 1 because it's disruptive, doesn't really have any conditions, and they have no battle phase, so guarantee that you're going to be able to use this card. However, during your turn 1, it is completely useless, and you'd rather have a combo piece that helps build the board rather than hold an Effect Veiler. To be honest, if you have one of those decks that have 1 or 2 cards that can establish the entire combo, then it's okay to have the Veiler, because Veiler acts as a 3rd or 4th negator, which is really useful. But then during your opponent's turn, if you have this card in your hand, that's still pretty decent because it's one of those cards that does not require you to have nothing to use it, so it just, again, acts as one of the 3rd or 4th negations available during your opponent's turn. However, if it's turn 2 during your turn and you top deck into this card, you really wish you top deck something else because she's completely useless. Again, her condition locking her only to be used during your opponent's main phase is quite disruptive. And sometimes your opponent activates stuff in the battle phase and you can't really stop it. And they summon stuff in the battle phase, and it's like that Gizmek shenanigan, all the stuff like that. Veiler, not so great. Then there is Evening Crescent and Autumn Shower. This one, I find that even as a disruptor, she's not very good. She's only good at disrupting special summon cards since she can't really stop anything normal summon. So Armageddon Knight, Draco Net, anything that sets up the big combo, if she's in your hand, you're like, okay, well, I can't hit that, I'll have to wait. But it gets to a point where sometimes you wait too long and then get into like an Appaloosa or something like that, then not so great. You see what I mean? But she does have her use cases during your own turn. Not your first turn, during your second turn. Again, during the turn 2 of your opponent's turn, this acts as, if you build your full board, this card is not locked out whatsoever. You can still use it much like an Ash Blossom Joy Spring. But during the turn 2 of your own turn, you are able to stop some special summon base monsters from your opponent. Say they have a Formula Synchron, an IP Masquerena, Wonder XYZ, stuff like that. Or even like those Barian Synchros or whatever. I have to say that this card is useful to stop IP Masquerena from going into the Unicorn. The Unicorn will not be able to spin a card. They'll lose a card and you dump this one, and then you're not going to get spun away. The Unicorn's effect is negated. You're good to go. You can even stop a Zero Boros. So IP Masquerena can get shut down, and this is where Veiler and Impermanence cannot really work that well, because the timing, your opponent will always be able to chain away, and yeah, it just doesn't always work in your favor. But Chalice obviously is able to match the timing of the Autumn Shower. And even for like Formula Synchron, I guess in Master Rule 420, you're gonna see people go into like Black Rose, you're gonna see people go into Excitonite. You're going to need to be able to stop it, and this card is able to do it. So yeah, there's that option. And if you're going close into time, I guess maybe you can force your opponent to end on a weaker board, so maybe you're able to punch for a little bit of damage to win in time. That's all I really have to say about this card. In terms of practicality, I have to say that the other cards are, right now, a bit more flexible, but it really depends on what Konami's going to release in the future to make this card more useful, or are they going to hit these other cards? I really hope they don't. I really hope they just make Autumn Shower a permanent effect rather than an expiring one during the end phase. Anyways, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the subscribe button to really help out this channel right now. And in terms of all these cards, there's Forbidden Chalice, more or less a flexible board breaker. You can use it to bait stuff. You can use it as a negator if you set it on your first turn. But overall, has one of the best timings. Then we have Infinite Impermanence, probably the most versatile negator. I think it's going to be a fan favorite for some time, unless Konami decides to hit the card because, oh, too many people are using it. But all in all, it's a very fair card. I don't see like them hitting an Effect Veiler or anything like that. Did they ever hit Effect Veiler? I don't think they ever did. So yeah, it doesn't seem like that's ever going to be the case, and especially when these cards don't like win the game for you altogether, and they don't have like that oppressive of an effect. It's great timing, usable set, and can negate spells and traps, immune to Call by the Grave, and not once per turn, so it has that usefulness in terms of impermanence. And for Veiler, it's a going second card. I don't feel like you should run it if you're going to be going first. It just clutters your hand. It's nice during the game 1 when you build your board and you have it, but game 2 and 3, if you're going first and you have this card and it's not letting you build your combo, then maybe you shouldn't be running this card. Perhaps your monster, you have to think about your trade-off. Does your end board equal to the one Veiler, or is it worth more than the one Veiler? Just something to think about. And also, Call by the Grave is going to be like sided in, something like that. It's not going to be as effective. And as for Evening Crescent Autumn Shower, I am sorry to say you have a very limited use case at the moment. I do like that you can stop IP Masquerena, but I think there are other strategies that can work around to play against the IP Masquerena. Remember, these are like the equivalent card. There's a one like unequivalent card, which would be Dark Ruler in the Womb, which just shuts everything down. Like, I don't care anymore, I'm just gonna break your board. This card, like, obviously just doesn't feel very useful. You can't stop the normal summons. It is good that you can use it during either player's turn. it's a collector's card maybe at this very moment, but if you're able to search this card out, if you're able to add it to your hand, guaranteed as a part of your strategy, then yes, this is a very good card, because all the other cards, they are not searchable. If you make this card searchable, I would understand why it could be once per turn, but if this card is not searchable and is basically drawn at the same rate as the other 3 cards mentioned, I think this is quite an underpowered Ghost Girl hand trap. And unless Konami releases something where none of the previous 3 can deal with it, but only this one can, then we'll see a use case for it. Similar to how Ghost Bell can disrupt stuff out of the removing stuff from the graveyard, and it still saw more use than, like, say, DD Crow to some degree. And that's just my take on this one. If you guys enjoyed this content, hit that thumbs up. If you guys want to add something that I did not mention about these cards, I know I did not compare Gamma. You're like, oh, but Gamma also negates monster effects. Yes, Gamma negates monster effects, and you have to run a brick to do so. But it is still very powerful because that one actually removes the monster as well. So I didn't compare that one because all of these negate the monster's effects rather than negate the activation of those effects. So not a fair comparison. Anyways, if you guys enjoy, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and ding the notification bell, or else I'm sending you guys to the Shadow Realm where Master Rule 2020 does not exist. You'll be left behind, guys. It's not cool. I'm just kidding. You guys can come along. I'll save you guys, so you hit that subscribe. We're all good. And I'll see you guys in the next one, and happy holidays, everyone. Perhaps I'll see you guys next year, but I think there might be a couple more content coming out if I feel like making any more for the rest of this holiday.